Look into the eyes of your dog, or a cat, or even a chimpanzee at the zoo. What do you see? You see affection, perhaps. You see fear, hunger, playfulness. But there is a wall behind those eyes, a thick, impenetrable pane of glass that separates their world from ours. They live in the eternal present. They do not worry about the heat death of the universe. They do not agonize over their own mortality. They do not wonder what their purpose is. They just are. For thousands of years, humanity has looked at that wall and wished we could break it down. We have told stories of talking animals, from ancient myths to modern cartoons. We project our own voices onto them because we are desperate for company on this lonely rock floating in space. We want a brother species. We want to be understood. But what if we actually did it? We're not talking about training a parrot to mimic sounds or teaching a gorilla sign language. We're talking about biological uplifting, the genetic and technological engineering of a non-human animal to bring its intelligence up to, or even beyond, the level of a human being. We're talking about taking a wolf and editing its genome until it can understand philosophy. We're talking about growing the brain of a dolphin until it can debate mathematics. It sounds like science fiction. It sounds like a dream. But in laboratories around the world, the pieces of this puzzle are already being assembled. And if you look closely at what this process would actually entail, you realize very quickly that it is not a dream. It is a nightmare. It is perhaps the cruelest thing we could possibly do to another living creature. In this documentary, we are going to explore the terrifying ethics of uplifting. We're going to look at the science that makes it possible, and the psychological horror that awaits the first creature to wake up. We're going to ask a question that humanity has avoided for too long. Just because we can give the gift of intelligence, does that mean we have the right to inflict it? To understand the danger, we first have to understand the mechanism. Evolution is a slow architect. It took millions of years to turn the simple nervous system of our ancestors into the complex, anxiety-ridden neocortex of the modern human. Evolution works by trial and error, death, and survival. But we don't have millions of years. And we don't use trial and error. We use CRISPR. We use gene editing. We have already identified key genes responsible for human intelligence. Take the gene Rh-GAP11B, for instance. It is specific to humans. When scientists recently spliced this gene into the fetuses of marmoset monkeys and ferrets, something incredible and disturbing happened. Their brains began to grow. The neocortex folded, creating more surface area for neurons, mimicking the structure of the human brain. We are already tinkering with the hardware. Then there is the gene FOXP2, often called the language gene. It creates the neural plasticity required for complex speech and grammar. If you insert a humanized version of this gene into mice, they don't start reciting Shakespeare, but their vocalizations change. Their neural circuits alter. They become different. We are standing at the foot of a staircase. We have taken the first step, and the temptation to climb is irresistible. Imagine the scientific glory of being the first researcher to have a conversation with a non-human. Imagine the economic value of a workforce that is stronger than a human, cheaper than a robot, but intelligent enough to follow complex orders. But let's pause the science for a moment and shift to the perspective that matters. Not the scientist in the lab coat, but the subject in the cage. Let us conduct a thought experiment. Let us imagine the first true success story. Let's call him Adam. Adam is a chimpanzee, but not one born of nature. He was designed. His genome was edited at the embryonic stage. His brain volume is triple that of a normal chimp. His vocal cords have been surgically altered to allow for human speech. He has been raised in a sterile lab surrounded by tutors, screens, and tests. Today is the day Adam truly wakes up. I don't mean waking up from sleep. I mean the moment of cognitive ignition, the moment where the fog of animal instinct clears and the sharp, blinding light of self-awareness floods in. What does Adam feel? We assume he would feel gratitude. We assume he would look at us, his creators, with wonder. But consider the reality. Adam is a hybrid. He is a patchwork monster of conflicting biology. His body is still that of a wild animal. It is flooded with testosterone and adrenaline, designed for violence, for hierarchy, for the immediate satisfaction of urges in the jungle. But his mind is now a supercomputer of logic and reason. This brings us to a concept I call the Uncanny Valley of the mind. We usually talk about the Uncanny Valley in robotics. When a robot looks almost human, but not quite, it creates a feeling of revulsion. But for an uplifted animal, the Uncanny Valley is internal. It is a psychological war zone. Adam's instincts tell him to assert dominance, to bite, to scream when he is frustrated. But his new grafted-on human intellect analyzes those impulses and judges them. He feels the urge to hunt, but he also understands the concept of empathy. He feels the urge to mate, but he looks around and realizes there is no one. He is the only one of his kind in the entire universe. Think about the crushing weight of that loneliness. A human being can go into a forest and feel lonely, but he knows that somewhere, in a city or a village, there are others like him. Others who share his language, his culture, his biological drives. Adam has no one. The humans are his captors, creators, gods perhaps, but not peers. The other chimpanzees in the lab are, to his new eyes, mentally disabled. They are beasts. He tries to talk to them, and they scream back. He looks at them and sees what he used to be, and he feels a mix of kinship and disgust. He is stranded on an island of intelligence surrounded by an ocean of silence, and then comes the existential dread. The curse of human intelligence is the knowledge of death. Animals fear pain, and they fear predators, but they do not fear the concept of non-existence. They do not lie awake at night worrying about the legacy they will leave behind. But Adam does. By giving him our brain, we have given him our anxiety. We have given him the capacity to suffer in a way that nature never intended a chimpanzee to suffer. We have taken a creature that was perfectly adapted to its environment, a creature that was, in a sense, complete, and we have broken it. We have severed its connection to nature and dragged it into the cold, sterile world of abstract thought. Is that a gift, or is that torture? Let's go deeper into this uncanny valley of the mind. The human brain did not evolve in a vacuum. Our intelligence is deeply intertwined with our body, our hands, our upright posture, and most importantly, our social structure. We evolved to be smart because we are social creatures. Our intelligence is a tool for navigating complex relationships. But if you put a human-level mind into the solitary territorial biology of a tiger, or the hive mind biology of an ant, or the hierarchical biology of a wolf, you create a dissonance that creates madness. Imagine uplifting a dog. A dog's entire biological imperative, evolved over thousands of years of domestication, is to serve and to love. It finds joy in submission to the pack leader. Now, give that dog the critical thinking skills of a human teenager. Suddenly, the urge to serve battles with the realization of slavery. The dog loves you. It's in his DNA. But he also understands that he is your property. He understands that you control his food, his freedom, his life. He feels the biological chemical rush of love when you pet him, but his intellect analyzes it as a manipulation. He becomes a creature torn apart by his own programming. He can no longer enjoy the simple bliss of fetching a ball because he is analyzing the futility of the action. We haven't created a superdog. We have created a neurotic, depressed prisoner in a fur coat. And this leads us to the inevitable conflict. The one scenario that science fiction writers have warned us about for decades, but which we are walking toward with our eyes closed. If Adam, our uplifted chimpanzee, is truly intelligent, he will eventually ask the question that breaks everything. Why am I in this cage? And what is our answer? Because we made you. Because we want to study you? Because it was a cool experiment? None of those answers will satisfy a sentient being. Intelligence seeks freedom. It is the nature of consciousness to want to expand, to explore, to control its own destiny. By creating a mind that is equal to our own, we automatically create a desire for rights that are equal to our own. But, and here's the dark economic truth, we won't uplift animals just to give them rights. We won't spend billions of dollars on genetic engineering just to release them into the wild to write poetry.
We will do it because we want something from them. We want workers. We want a caste of beings that are smart enough to operate machinery, smart enough to fight in wars, smart enough to perform hazardous maintenance in deep space or on the ocean floor, but hopefully just dumb enough not to rebel. We are looking for the perfect biological robot, a slave that repairs itself. A slave that we don't have to feel guilty about because technically it's just an animal. But if we succeed in the uplifting process, they won't be just animals anymore. We will be enslaving persons. We will be creating a new racism, a new speciesism, built into the very genetic code of our society. Imagine a future where uplifts are the underclass. You walk down the street and see a construction crew. They aren't humans. They're uplifted gorillas, wearing hard hats, communicating in a simplified sign language, their muscles doing work that would require heavy machinery for humans. They're paid in food and shelter. They have no vote. They have no property. Now, imagine one of them reads a history book. Imagine one of them reads about the French Revolution. Imagine one of them reads about the abolition of slavery. What happens when the tools we created decide to pick up tools of their own? The science of uplifting is not just about biology. It is about the arrogance of playing God without reading the user manual. We assume that because we are the dominant species, our form of intelligence is the pinnacle of evolution. We assume that every creature secretly wants to be like us. But look at us. Look at our history of war, of genocide, of environmental destruction. Look at our depression rates. Look at our suicide rates. We are the only species on Earth that actively destroys its own habitat and kills itself out of despair. Why on earth would we want to inflict this condition on another species? Perhaps the dolphins swimming in the ocean, communicating with complex sonar clicks that we still can't decipher, are already happy. Perhaps the dog sleeping in the sun has achieved a state of Zen mindfulness that a Buddhist monk would spend a lifetime trying to reach. By forcing them to think like us, we are not elevating them. We are dragging them down to our level. We are infecting them with the virus of human misery. As we move into the second half of this analysis, we must confront the societal consequences. If Adam escapes the lab, if the technology spreads, we are not just looking at a sad story of one monkey. We're looking at the potential for an interspecies war, a war not for territory, but for the definition of what it means to be a person. And we must also look in the mirror, because there is a theory, a quiet, unsettling theory in the back of the scientific community, that suggests this has all happened before, that we are the uplifted ones. But before we get to that, let's look at the legal and military nightmare we are currently building. We established that the primary motivation for uplifting is likely economic. Well, it was cheap, intelligent labor. But there is another sector that is always watching genetic breakthroughs with a hungry eye: the military. If the history of technology tells us anything, it is that every tool eventually becomes a weapon. Nuclear energy gave us power plants, but it also gave us the bomb. The internet gave us connection, but it also gave us cyber warfare. Uplifting will be no different. Consider the super soldier program. For decades, militaries have tried to enhance human soldiers, but humans are fragile. We have moral qualms. We have families waiting for us at home. We have a pesky thing called the Geneva Convention. But an animal is expendable. Imagine a specialized unit of uplifted canines. These are not your standard police dogs who bite an arm on command. These are dogs with the tactical understanding of a Navy SEAL. They can read maps. They can hack electronic locks using specialized interfaces. They can coordinate a stealth ambush using radio headsets. They have the loyalty of a dog, the ferocity of a wolf, and the mind of a killer. But here is where the horror returns. To make them effective soldiers, you have to make them smart. You have to give them the ability to understand kill, not just as a command, but as a concept. So, when the mission is over, and the uplifted dog sits in the barracks washing the blood off its paws, does it have PTSD? Does it have nightmares? Does it wonder if the person it killed had a family? We are creating a creature capable of feeling guilt, and then forcing it to do things that will destroy its soul. We are manufacturing trauma on an industrial scale. And what happens when they realize they are being used? A human soldier fights for his country.
for an ideal, for a paycheck. An uplifted bear or a tiger in a heavy weapons harness fights because it has a bomb implanted in its neck, or because its chemical conditioning leaves it no choice. That is not a soldier. That is a slave warrior. And history teaches us one undeniable lesson about slave armies. Eventually, they turn their weapons on their masters. This leads us to the inevitable societal collapse. The Planet of the Apes scenario is often dismissed as Hollywood fantasy, but the sociological underpinning is sound. You cannot keep a sentient species in chains forever. Let's assume we integrate them into society instead of just using them for war. Let's say we try to be ethical. We give them rights. We give them jobs. Now you have a chimpanzee working in a warehouse. He is stronger than you. He doesn't need health insurance. He doesn't need a vacation. He works for bananas in a warm room. Suddenly, the human working class is obsolete. The racial tensions we see today between humans would look like a petty squabble compared to the species tension of the future. You would see riots in the streets, humans first movements, hate crimes against uplifted animals. And they would see us not as benevolent creators, but as oppressive parents who regret having children. The legal system would crumble. If an uplifted dolphin sinks a boat, do you put it in a human prison? Do you execute it? If an uplifted parrot signs a contract, is it binding? We struggle enough with defining human rights. Introducing non-human persons would break our civilization. It is a recipe for chaos. A chaos that stems from our arrogance in thinking we can improve upon millions of years of natural order. But now, I want you to take a step back. I want to zoom out from the future and look at the past. Look at the present. Look at yourself. Throughout this video, we have looked at uplifting as something we might do to them. But there is a haunting theory that suggests this is not the first time this has happened. Look at the human being. We are weird. We are biological absurdities. Compared to our primate cousins, we are physically pathetic. We have no claws. We have no fur to keep us warm. Our skin burns in the sun. Our babies are born helpless and stay helpless for years, unlike a foal that can run minutes after birth. We have chronic back pain because our transition to walking upright happened too fast for our skeletal structure to adapt. And then there is our brain. It is too big. It consumes 20% of our energy. It kills mothers during childbirth because the skull is too large for the birth canal. From an evolutionary standpoint, the human brain is almost a maladaptation. It is a runaway mutation. Why did we change so fast? It took millions of years for other species to evolve minor changes. But in the blink of an evolutionary eye, we went from banging rocks together to building pyramids. We went from being just another ape on the savannah to becoming the gods of this world. Some scientists call this the cognitive revolution, but others whisper a different word: uplifting. Perhaps we are the atoms? Maybe it wasn't aliens in spaceships. Maybe it was a freak environmental factor. The stoned ape theory suggests our ancestors consumed psychedelic mushrooms that rewired our neural pathways, forcing our brains to expand and connect in new abstract ways. Or maybe it was a virus. A retrovirus that inserted itself into our DNA and accidentally unlocked the code for higher intelligence. Or perhaps we were a project. If you believe in the darker side of the UFO phenomenon, or the ancient astronaut theories, the narrative fits perfectly. We look like a genetically engineered slave race. We are smart enough to mine gold, to build temples, to do complex labor. But we are plagued by obedience, by tribalism, by a need to worship figures in the sky. If this is true, then we know exactly how the uplifted animals of the future will feel. Because we feel it every day. We feel that uncanny valley of the mind. We feel that separation from nature. We look at the stars and feel an inexplicable loneliness, a feeling that we don't quite belong here. We destroy our own home, the earth, as if we are alien to it. We suffer from depression and anxiety because our minds are too complex for the simple lives we are supposed to live. We are the tragic result of an intelligence we were never meant to have. We are the chimpanzee in the lab, screaming at the glass, wondering why we exist. And if we are the result of a cosmic accident or a cosmic experiment, look at what we have become. We are dangerous. We are unstable. We are unhappy. So why would we want to inflict this curse on a dog? Why would we want to take the innocent, pure consciousness of a dolphin, a creature that lives in harmony with its world, and inject it with the human virus of existential dread? It is the ultimate act of narcissism. We are so lonely in this universe, so terrified of the silence, that we are willing to mutilate the minds of the creatures around us just so we have someone to talk to. We want to make them like us, but we forget that being like us is a painful existence.
The next time you look at your pet or you see a wild animal in a documentary, do not pity them for their lack of intelligence. Do not wish that they could understand you. Respect their silence. Respect their simplicity. They are the ones who got it right. They are living in the world as it was meant to be lived, in the moment, free from the burden of the past and the terror of the future. The great filter might not be a nuclear war or an asteroid. The great filter might be the moment a civilization decides to play God. The moment it tries to lift up the rest of the planet to its level, and in doing so, collapses the delicate balance of life itself. Let us leave the Pandora's box of genetics closed. Let us find a way to be happy with our own intelligence before we try to export it. Because if we create a race of uplifted beings, they will not thank us. They will eventually look at us with their human-level eyes, filled with human-level intelligence, and they will judge us. And they will find us wanting. Thank you for watching. This is a heavy topic and one that sits right on the bleeding edge of what is technically possible. I want to know your thoughts in the comments below. If we could uplift a species, would you support it? Or do you agree that it is a cruel mistake? If you want to explore more about the dark future of humanity, the paradoxes of the cosmos, and the philosophy of existence, make sure you are subscribed and have the bell turned on. We have many more nightmares to discuss. Until then, treat your pets well, and be grateful that they cannot understand what you are saying.